We're Marriott Events, right?
Okay, calling the meeting to order.
Yeah, apparently not allowed online. I can always.
When I state your jurisdiction, when I call your jurisdiction, please state your name. San Mateo County.
Dave Pine.
San Mateo County.
Ray Neal.
Atherton.
Rick DeGolia.
Belmont. Julia May. Brisbane.
Pauline Mackin,
Burlingame.
Donna Colton,
Colma. Daly City.
Radas Nankwa.
East Palo Alto. Let me just confirm.
Carlos Romero. Carlos Romero in Monterey. What are the magic words? Forgive me.
What are the magic words? Forgive me.
Let me help you out, gentlemen. Per AB 2449, Carlos Romero, Marty Medina, and Anders Fung will be participating remotely under a just cause exemption for travel for city business. And I believe the three will be online, but please call your name out when I call your jurisdiction, gentlemen. Okay. Foster City.
Sam Hindy.
Thank you. Half Moon Bay.
Harvey Warback.
Hillsborough.
Leslie Ragsdale,
Los Banos. Let me confirm if he's online. Yes, let me, 1 second, promote call to panelists. Let's give them a moment to join.
Hello, Los Banos is here.
Thank you. Here. Randall Park. Here. Randall Park. Okay. Online, Bill Bray.
Joining remotely, Anders Fung.
If you all are in the same room virtually, can only one microphone be on, please? Thank you. Pacifica. You, Portola Valley.
Jeff Elps.
You, Redwood City. Thank you. San Bruno.
Marty Medina, coming through remotely with Anders Fung and Carlos Romero,
And no one is in.
and no one
Thank
else
you.
in the room.
Thank you. San Carlos.
John Duty.
San Mateo. South San Francisco. Woodside.
Net Fluid.
Thank you. And actually, Ned is a new board member. So welcome, Ned. Happy to have you. And we need to do an official swearing in. Jennifer Stalzer is online. Jennifer.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. He has a copy of the oath. He's ready.
All right. Is everyone doing it together or is it only one member?
Only one.
All right. I'll go ahead and read a few lines and then if you can repeat after me. I, and insert your full name, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
I, Ned Fluid, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I will take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
That I will take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Welcome. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comment. Please note that Peninsula Clean Energy Board of Directors meetings are a limited public forum. And all public comment must relate to something that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. If comments do not relate to the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, we will stop the comment and we'll move on to the next speaker. General counsel will assist in identifying comments that are not related to the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Is there any public comment? I don't see any public comment. I'll close public comment. We'll move on. Can I get a motion to set the agenda and approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Okay, second from Julia, motion from Sam. And there are 2 items on the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull anything on the consent agenda or any comments on them? I will make one comment, which is the second item on the agenda is approval of an EV Ready Program Fund Reservation Agreement. In the past, these agreements come to us as a board when they exceed $100,000, which I think is the second time we've addressed this. In the past, the EV Ready Program Fund Reservation Agreement was filled out with all the content of who the party was. It's not legally required, but we did that. This one didn't have that, but I have it. So if anyone on the board or any of the members of the public would like to see that information. We have a motion and a second. Can we do a roll? What? Let's see. Yeah, we have to do a roll call. We have people.
San Mateo County,
Yeah.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
Atherton.
Yes.
Belmont.
Yes.
Brisbane,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Colma. Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto,
Yes.
Boston City,
Yes.
Half Moon Bay, Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae, Millbrae,
Aye.
Pacifica,
Yeah.
Quilla Valley,
Yep.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco.
Yeah.
Woodside.
Yeah.
Thank you, and motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, first item on the regular agenda is the chair report. I've got 2 things. One, just as a reminder to board members, we have initiated the process of changing the board chair and vice chair, which we do every year, and the executive committee. And that process involves as chair, appointing a nominating committee of the board. That nominating committee is 3 people, chaired by Jeff Alts, with Colleen Mackin and Anders Funk. And if anybody wishes to apply for the position of chair or vice chair, please contact them and let them know, and they'll initiate and follow up with you through a process of interview and discussion. The process for proceeding with the chair change is that the nominating committee will come back at the next meeting in February. They will make a proposal to the board. The board will vote that up or down. Once the chair and vice chair have been elected, then between the February meeting and the March meeting, they will propose a executive committee, and that proposal will come back to the March board for approval. So we're moving forward on that process. The second report is, yesterday I had the opportunity to attend a really interesting presentation of a project called the Nexus Project. And I want you to inform you about this, because this is a project that is basically happening in Los Banos, and I think it's really interesting. If the project doesn't itself become interesting, what it leads to will be interesting. And this project is the first attempt to put solar panels over irrigation canals. This is a pilot project that is a partnership between the state of California, the developer and the Turlock Irrigation District. It's a $20 million project. They're covering about a mile of irrigation ditches with structure, not these panels aren't going to lie on the water because sometimes irrigation ditches go dry and this one does. So they're going to build it about 3 feet over the water, but it's the first effort to see how that works. They are in the process of trying to put together a second project, and their desired partner is an irrigation canal district that is headquartered in Los Banos. That project would actually put the panels on the water. And the reason that this is so interesting is the Holy Grail is the California Aqueduct, which is several thousand miles, maybe it's 1,000 miles, but it's a very long aqueduct that's 125 feet across. And the benefit of this is not just the solar production, but it saves water evaporation. And the amount of water evaporation is astonishing. The amount of water evaporation that they estimate would be saved from the aqueduct if it were covered is billions of gallons. So, and the other thing is obviously the land cost for where you're going to put the panels is the state of California, so it's infrastructure. So there's a real partnership there, and they can use that power to move that water. And we currently use 3% of our energy in California to move water through the California Aqueduct. So it's an enormous energy. So it was a pretty interesting thing, and we will follow it closely, and we'll be in touch with them and with Paul in Los Banos about the idea of moving to this next pilot, which it's not really clear how we might participate, but they were interested enough to invite me, and we spent an hour. I spent an hour talking with the developers about it, so it was pretty interesting. Okay, next item is the CEO report.
Okay. Thank you very much for going yesterday. Okay. Okay, so we have a packed agenda tonight. So I and the staff will do our best to be as brief as we can through our reports this evening, so we don't run late. My first item up, so I'm going to skim through these. I'm not going to read them, and hopefully you all saw most of this in the staff report. Did want to tell you that we've had very, very positive response in the past month to our surplus fund allocation of 68 million that included a $300 rebate for CareFair customers. Rick's got a couple cards here that we've received, and just going to pass them around so you can see the sweet notes that we've gotten.
Read the cards, they're very real.
Yeah, it's very nice. And then I also wanted to follow up to let you all know that your staffs will be receiving an email, if not tomorrow, then the early part of next week. And we will copy you, of course, on it to outline two major funding programs for local governments. One is the Local Government Electrification Grant and Loan Program. You guys remember that you adopted that in August. And then at the December meeting, as part of surplus funds, we adopted 11.5 million in member agency grants. And so we're gonna put together a webinar in mid-February talking about the application process, the guidelines, the timing, and all of that, with the idea that by late March, we can be receiving applications for funding and get that process going on a rolling basis. So stay tuned for that. It is, it's on our short list. The next couple slides I do want to share. I'm not going to go through all of these because it would take too long. I'm happy to agendize the 2024 work plan for next month if you want. But I want to take the opportunity to just call out a few things here in yellow that you may not have heard before through our retreat process and all of that. So there are a couple of new things on here that I need to just acknowledge my colleague Shalini Swaroop, our new COO, for bringing her talents to Peninsula Clean Energy and having some great suggestions, along with Nick, and that'll show up next. So for the C-suite, that would be Nick, Shalini, and I. There are a number of things we're working on. These lists do not include hundreds of other everyday tasks and projects, right? So just gonna make that clear. Couple things that are new. One is, Shalini has experience with working through, federal and state channels to expand revenue streams for CCA. So you might recall that she worked for MCE Clean Energy for many years. And they've gotten significant funding from the PUC, from the CEC, and congressional earmarks, DOE, et cetera. And we had many discussions about it and decided that it was well worth the exploration of what that might look like for PCE. The other thing that I'm working on with Nick and Shalini is a managed growth strategy. This will come back to you all really in the form of some discussion around staffing as it relates to the next couple of budget seasons. Last year, you might recall, we had a significant jump in staff approvals. There's all kinds of new and exciting things that we want to do. And we just need to make sure that our staffing plan can carry us out through multiple years and not get us in a pickle when and if revenue flattens out in a couple of years. So we're working on that. We will come back to you with a plan. Jumping down, just do want to let you know that the Power Services team is working on a strategic discussion to bring back to the board next month around power ownership and project ownership. Question being, to own or not to own? And so we'll be meeting with the procurement subcommittee to provide a lot of that detail, and that'll come to the board next month. Here, this is all, I didn't highlight anything, not because it's not important, but because you've already heard about all of it. Again, happy to do more detail next month. And then just two things on this page under regulatory and legislative policy. The PCE federal initiative is linked to expansion of revenue opportunities, but also really wanting to deepen our relationships at the DOE, given recent funding availability, Congress, et cetera. So we hired a federal lobbyist. Would you remind me the name of the company?
Thorn Run Partners.
Thorn Run Partners, who's done work with other CCAs. It's a modest contract because it's really just an opportunity for us this year to explore what it might look like and what are the benefits to PCE of having a federal presence. So just making you aware of that because we hadn't talked about that previously. And then the other new thing is an opportunity to apply for CPUC energy efficiency funds as an administrator as we move more into flex market and other CPUC programs. There's millions of dollars that we are potentially could qualify for, but first we have to have the administrative stamp of approval from PUC. That will come also under Shalini's watch and team, as well as Jeremy. So that concludes the 24 initiatives. I do also want to circle back on our promise at the board retreat in November, and this is the list of follow-up items that we had coming out of November. And just to give you an idea of when it's coming before you, because we said that we would have follow-on chats. So as mentioned, the power project ownership discussion is coming next month. Then Roy and team will be bringing back the 24/7 hourly target and strategy. As you recall, they're doing a lot of follow-up work on that. That's coming in March. Account services will be coming back with a update and more built out plan for a customer service center. Likely to be in February for executive committee, and then come back to the full board in April or May when the business plan is more developed. For programs, we promised to do a demand response distributed energy resource implementation plan that is slated for your board in April. And then other items upcoming will be a cost of service rate setting series of discussions. I don't think it'll be one, it'll probably be a couple, March through June. And then we're gearing up this year, preparing for the ECO 100 2025 renewable energy, 100% renewable energy default product, and what to do around other products that we might like to offer to our customers. So we'll have a couple of options for you all to consider this summer for implementation in 2020. So just wanted to kind of give you a sense of the coming 6 months and how we schedule those across your meetings.
I think it's really valuable for you to give us that future view.
Good.
Really important.
Great, good. I also just
There-
wanted you to know, we didn't
there's-
forget.
There's so much we deal with at this board. It's easy to forget things and I mean, that retreat had a lot of in-depth discussion, so it's, I think, really important for you to continue to press that, and
Good.
you're obviously working on it, but sharing it with us is important.
I'll keep doing it.
Good.
Cool. Next up is the Ninth Circuit ruling reach codes. I provided more detail about this in my report, so all I'm gonna say is that the court ruling earlier this month essentially makes the city of Berkeley's gas ban unenforceable. It is not entirely analogous to our reach code, so there was a good article that Raphael participated in a couple of weeks ago that really talks about the difference between the two. That said, we are encouraging our cities and city attorneys to make their own legal determinations around whatever implications might exist for your codes. There are alternate codes available. If you want them or your city staff wants them, please reach out to Raphael and we can provide. And then related to that, we are participating with Bay Area Air Quality Management District related to their ruling last year regarding gas, water, heaters, and furnace phase out. We are working with our Bay Area CCAs and in dialogue with BACMID, just providing some technical reality checks, for lack of a better term, communications implications, and all of that in advance of their interim report, which is due out in December of this year. So the great news is that a number of PCE staff have seats at the table on working groups. And we are making sure that our voice and our opinions are included here. So I do want to commend Raphael and Blake and his team for participation there.
And through the chair, just don't forget that our council member is chair of BACMed, Davina Hurt. So
Very good.
good to know.
Yeah, thank you. We have a meeting with their leadership on Monday.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, quick update on GovPV1. This is phase one of our solar on municipal buildings. We have a big item tonight regarding phase two, but just to let you know, San Carlos Community Center is live. They're going to save over 250,000 over the course of that contract. Next up to go live, Millbrae, Hillsborough, Pacifica. We are waiting on PG&E to issue that PTO. We have nothing to say about that. So it's the switch is ready. And then as I said, Raphael will have a deeper dive on GovPV round 2. Okay, sorry, you cannot read this small print. What I want to do here is just give you a quick summary of some recent actions that that we've taken both at Cal CCA and at CC Power. You know that I sit on both boards. The first is to let you know that the Cal CCA board earlier this month approved Cal CCA moving forward, filing an appeal in the state appeals court on the basis of CPUC jurisdictional boundary. And in short, what this asserts is that the CPUC did not have jurisdictional authority to basically curtail expansion related to RA compliance. So CPUC linked those two things together in a punitive way, you might recall. And what we are saying is that is not within your jurisdiction to do that. This is a use case, really, for lack of a better term, going to the courts. It's the first time, I believe, that we've taken anything against CPUC to the courts. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. So certainly keep you posted. The next is just to let you know that Cal CCA filed RA comments that were quite substantial. There's a long laundry list of requests, but in essence, a couple of key things. One is that they are requesting the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to check into the market for RA to ensure that costs are fair and reasonable. They're asking for an extension on the cure time for month ahead and year ahead filings. And they're asking the commission to adopt a temporary waiver to ensure a smooth transition to a slice of day compliance period. That slice of day is very, very complicated, related to the 24-hour goal. And if you have questions, I would ask that we probably hold those, and we could bring them to the next meeting for a deeper explanation. Super complicated. Do you want to shout out for Doug for being on that Tiger team, getting that ready? For CC Power, there was a board meeting last week. The main thing that happened there is that the board approved a phase 1 study for a build, own, transfer project. And the reason why this is relevant tonight is that we just got through saying we're gonna be having this discussion around to own or not to own in terms of PCE's project development and ownership. And this is happening kind of in parallel at CC Power, where they've done a lot of joint procurement, and now there's this opportunity potentially to look at joint ownership of projects, similar to NCPA or SCAPA or any of those joint agencies that do joint procurement. So in summary, what I voted to approve, and it was a unanimous vote, was a cost share. Our piece would be a maximum of $70,000 to do a phase 1 study of what that build to own process would look like. They would run an initial solicitation, and only if we're interested, it would come back to this board, and then we would decide, do we want to own a piece of that project? So it's a long-term effort, but I wanted you to be aware of it. Okay, almost done, I promise. Legislatively, excuse me. Assembly Member Petrie Norris is the chair of Assembly Committee on Utilities and Energy. She is in Orange County Power Authority service territory, so hopefully an ally. Mike McGuire, who's from Healdsburg, will become pro tem on February 5th for a term of 2 years. And in your report and in Mark's report, you know that the state budget deficit is looking not pretty at all for a deficit of 68 billion, and we'll wait for the May revise. Tonight, we are welcoming Chris Duarte, our senior IT engineer. Are you here, Chris? He might be in the back.
He's probably back.
He's in the back. Hi, Chris, running things. Yay, there he is, through the door. Now you're okay. We have a number of positions that we're looking to fill, so help us spread the word. Here are the meetings, and we're off to the CAC. Thanks. Okay, good.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the CAC report.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Honorable Chair DeGolia and members of the board. The CAC met Thursday, January 11th, and member Robert Whitehair made a public comment reminding us that the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit will not reconsider the decision to overturn Berkeley's ban on methane gas in new construction. Robert asked the CAC to discuss the impacts of this decision on REACH codes. I shared that member Shreya Sudhakar has resigned. He works intensely leading a startup and was not able to attend meetings. The committee was really pleased to learn that you approved the budget surplus recommendation we saw in December, especially the CARE and FARA rebates. That was wonderful. Jeremy Wayne, Senior Director of Regulatory Policy, reviewed how California energy policies are created, information the CAC has been interested in for a long time. Jeremy highlighted each regulatory agency and to whom it reports, the tasks it's charged with, and how commissioners are appointed. Members had good questions about overlap in agencies' roles, how they make decisions, and how they interact with PCE. Kirsten Andrews-Schwinn, Senior Manager of Community Relations, reviewed results of the recent CAC satisfaction survey, which were encouraging and improved over results from the last 2 years. Members would like more chances to collaborate with and advise staff when staff have short-term needs, as well as when they're considering or just beginning to develop new programs. Members appreciate how some working groups give them these opportunities. Kirsten, as staff liaison to the DEAI working group, asked for help in researching language access policies in other organizations. Vanessa Shin, Senior Community Relations Specialist, reported changes in the used EV program and PCE's open role for Community Outreach Specialist. Kirsten shared the fantastic news that PCE will not raise rates until at least March of this year. That completes my report. What questions may I answer?
Any questions? Cheryl, I don't see any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me just ask if there's any public comment. I don't see any public comment here. See public comment online. Okay, we'll move on to item number 6, which is the Peninsula Clean Energy Generation Rate Analysis and Staff Recommendation. So this is an action.
This is Leslie and Nick, I believe.
Is there? Great. Okay, great. So thank you. So tonight we're going to talk about the analysis that staff did over the last month. A little bit about the financial impact that we looked at for PCE. What the customer impact would be based on our recommendations for rates. Thank you. And in our staff recommendation. So for 2024, if you remember, last month, we came to you and proposed that we approach our rate change a little bit differently this year. We wanted to do some additional analysis after we got PG&E's rates for January 1, because all of the indicators that we were getting is that PG&E was going to have a much higher increase in generation rates than we had initially projected. So last year when we were doing our budget forecasting, the models that were available at the time and the advice that we were getting from various agencies that were looking at it. When we did our budget, we were projecting effectively about a 1% change in our rates based off of what was going to happen with PG&E's rates. So based on the PCIA and gen rates, we thought we were going to need to change our rates about 1%. What ended up happening is that PG&E had a much higher increase in generation rates than we anticipated. So if we had followed our standard practice and right away changed our rates to be 5% discount from PG&E, we would have had an increase potentially larger than we needed. And so that's what we wanted to spend some time looking at. And that's why we held off on right away doing that rate recommendation to have that analysis time and come back to you now with some alternate options in our recommendation. So the system-wide increase from PG&E was roughly 15%. Part of that 15% includes this accelerated recapture for under collection on the generation side. So that there is a component of that increase that we know is going to fall off July 1. So rates are actually exceptionally higher this first 6 months of the year, and then they're going to fall back a little bit from PG&E July 1. So when we did this updated analysis, Nick and Haley did an update on the financial for 2024, looking at some increased costs that we were projecting for energy, primarily related to RA, also some other components coming from the power resources team. And then we ran different scenarios looking at different rate discount options for the first 6 months of the year. So we looked at what would it be if we had a 10% discount, what if we had a 5% discount like we normally do? What if we didn't change rates at all the way till July 1? What did that look like? So that's the work that we did.
Question.
Yes.
On the system-wide rate increase of 15% from PG&E.
Yeah.
What's the allocation between delivery and generation?
That's generation. That's the generation increase. Yeah, the 15% is generation. Yeah, the T&D increase is actually more like 25%. So it's very high. So yeah, it's a good point though, Rick, because our customers, even though we have not changed our rates so far, we've kept our rates so far steady at our 2023 levels. Our customers' bills for electricity have actually gone up because they started paying those higher delivery charges from PG&E effective January 1. So those higher PG&E delivery charges effective January 1 are there regardless. What we're looking at is what's going to happen on our side of the bill. Yeah. So this is I'll defer to Nick if there's any more detailed questions on this, but we did include this in your board packet. But this is a analysis of the days cash on hand, looking at the different scenarios. So you can see all the scenarios we maintain, within that band of 180, 250 days cash on hand, regardless of what discount we're looking at. The most favorable discount scenario would be those for us to not change our rates. It's very similar to the 10% discount overall, as far as days cash on hand, but it's slightly more favorable to the customer if we just don't do anything to our rates overall.
And I'll just mention on
Yeah,
that, the
go for it.
reason the bars are even maybe higher than we might otherwise expect to another 64 days is because we have not fully distributed the surplus funds committee.
Yeah.
Surplus funds, funds that will go out actually mostly in 2025.
Yeah.
This includes the $300 credit and some other small dollars.
What that reflects the $300, right?
$300
It doesn't reflect a whole lot of it.
Exactly.
Right, thank you. And then similar to the change in our net position, we've got the updated forecast. Again, that also includes some of that surplus fund money that Nick just mentioned. And then the slightly different situations between, a regular discount, a 10% discount overall, and then not making any rate change at all. And so it's very similar. We're looking at this, trying to see if we can give what we could do for customers and still be in a good position for this first 6 months of the year overall. In between the 10% and not changing rates at all, very similar. So through our internal discussion, what we ended up coming forth with is want to recommend to not make any rate changes, and for a couple of reasons. Not making any rate changes does provide customers on most rate schedules a relative discount larger than 10% across the board. So this is a snapshot of ETOUC, which is the most popular residential rate in San Mateo County. Most of our residents are taking service under this rate schedule. So what you have here is just a look at what is PCE's current rate for ETOUC. What is the sort of effective rate when we add the our rate plus the surcharges, and then comparing that to PG&E's bundled rate. So you can see that there's a sort of a discount across the board between 10 and 13% just for ETOUC. It's not exactly the same for every rate period because we're not adjusting like we normally would. In a normal scenario, we would adjust rates so that every one of those discounts would be 5%. But if we keep our rate steady, don't make any changes, that discount's gonna vary a little bit across rate period, which is why when we're talking about this discount right now, we're saying 10 to 15%, roughly this much savings, because it's gonna be a little bit different for every customer and every rate schedule, depending on how you're using energy, if we don't make that adjustment. There are a couple of outliers in a couple of the super off-peak rates for large customers where PG&E shifted the differentials a lot so that if we don't make any change, our costs are actually higher, which is why we're recommending for those particular sub-periods of rate periods that we make adjustments there just to keep the rate even, but everything else we just leave alone. And so that's ultimately what our recommendation is for staff. So again, the customer impact here is if we leave everything alone, helps mitigate that higher cost that's coming in already from PG&E on the delivery side. Our system-wide savings is roughly 10 to 15%, but again, it's gonna vary by mileage. For residential customers, what that looks like is about a $10 a month savings. But again, it's gonna vary. And then it is a little bit higher in Los Banos. And the reason why it's a little bit higher in Los Banos is twofold. One, because they have a different PCIA vintage that they're dealing with there. And so that differential in the PCIA changed at a different rate than the one in San Mateo County did. Also, they have higher energy usage on average per customer. And so the difference ends up being a larger dollar amount when you're looking at an average household in Los Banos versus an average household in San Mateo County. They're on average in Los Banos, because it's more single family homes and more air conditioning typically in the summer, their average monthly usage is a couple hundred kilowatt hours higher than San Mateo County. Yeah.
So given that information, I assume that if we leave rates the way they are as staff recommends, that in fact the discount for Los Banos would be a little higher than the 10 to 15%.
It's a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit higher. Yeah, it's a little bit higher than Los Banos.
Calculated what it would be.
Yeah, it again, it varies. It's a little bit different. It's more in the 15 to 18% neighborhood in Los Banos, but it does vary more so based off of how they use energy out there. Yeah.
I think that's really important to let Paul know so he can communicate that.
Yeah.
He'll obviously be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, so and we've been in conversation with Kirsten and Barry and Gwen about how we might wanna bracket some messaging to be a little bit different in Los Banos, but yeah. So our staff recommendation is essentially to keep rates at that 2023 level, except for the few rates that we've called out here, the B19, B20, super off-peak periods, and it's actually, and then one other one is at ag rate in the summer demand, where we would adjust those just to be at parity with PG&E, but everything else will stay as is until we'll come back in June with some other requests for how we want to handle rates for July.
Sorry, but when you say adjust them to be at parity, that means maintain the 5% discount.
Actually, thank you for calling that. I'm actually suggesting that they be at parity with PG&E because the rest of the rate is so much of a discount that even that 9 to 2 p.m. period in March, April, May, which is what super off-peak is, if we just keep it at level of PG&E, overall, that discount is still gonna be significant for the customer. So we're just gonna match PG&E for super off-peak for those couple of different periods. And then their bill in general will still be bigger than a 5% discount overall. Yeah.
Does everyone understand that? In our time of use bill, the super off-peak is just a very small part of the day.
Yeah, in 3 months out of the year. It's March, April, May from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And it only applies to certain large commercial rate schedules.
Okay, great. Let me see if there's any questions from members of the board. Kyrgyz.
So my question is, if we do this, frankly, much as we sent out a separate letter to let the Carafera customers know they were gonna get the $300 discount, would we be sending a letter out independent of the bill to let all our customers know, hey, we're not raising your rate like PG&E is?
So the plan with marketing right now is not to necessarily send a direct mail piece to everybody, but to have some more aggressive messaging. I do believe actually there's a plan pending your approval that something's gonna flash on our homepage tomorrow. And then some other messaging, social media wise, over the next couple of days, plus a press release.
Yeah. Although Tiger Jazz, I'm happy to talk with Gwen about that and see how much, because I have to say, I think the letter for the Carafera customers was very effective. And it may be worth the money. That's the big thing, is the printing and the postage, but it might be worth it. So I'll take it back and we'll look at that.
Thank you.
Other questions? Colleen.
Leslie, the 40 accounts adjustment to parity, did you utilize that calculation in the net position calculation?
So those 40, yeah, those 40 accounts are basically the individual 40 super off-peak periods right there. And so in terms of the net position overall, it's I don't actually it would be like so far away on the rounding error, it would not impact that number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sam.
Thank you, Leslie, for the presentation. So I make sure I understand correctly. The fiscal impact 28 million if we approve it.
It will
The
affect.
fiscal impact is 28 million if we don't change the rate, or what is the fiscal impact?
Want us to go to the
Let me go to that
net
side.
position. It's actually about 15 million because it's the difference that page. So if we were to go to a standard 5% discount, which is normal practice, we would have a $40 million net income. With this recommendation, it's 29. So it's about an $11 million difference between the two scenarios.
Any other questions? None of the board? Let me see if there's any public comment. Is there any public comment on this issue? I don't see any public comment in the room. I don't see any public comment online. We'll close public comment. Anyone from the board wish to make a comment? Please.
Yes, thank you. I just appreciate this presentation, and I support the no fee change decision. I thank finance for and the team for innovative thinking that's leveraging PCE's advantages and success to turn the tables on what I feel like in previous years might have been an angst-inducing moment into an opportunity to distinguish PCE as a superior alternative. So I appreciate also the member Big Sticks question and talking about how marketing is making sure that we take advantage of this. Anecdotally, I feel like I've already heard and read a number of comments from people complaining about the PG&E price increases. So I feel like I just appreciate this discussion and support the no fee alternative. Thank you. Please, that's it.
Given that there will be an increase for most people in their bills because of the transmission, the distribution, that should be mentioned in the letter, I would assume, so that when people do see an increase, they can make sense of it.
I'm sorry, if that was a motion to approve the resolution.
That wasn't a motion.
Not yet.
Any other comments? I mean, I'll just say, yeah, Betsy's point is very important. 2/3 of our bill is delivery and transmission. So the PG&E would be increasing generation by 10% or 15% and delivery by 10% for our customers. They're still going to experience that bill increase from that 10% delivery. So that's like a 6% increase that our customers are going to experience, notwithstanding us not raising our rate. But I think it's really important for us to take that these funds are paid by ratepayers and they have to be returned to ratepayers. And if we want people to electrify and to start to make the changes that we're advocating, we've got to drive these electricity prices down. We don't have an option on how we drive them down. Frankly, I don't know, but stopping increasing them has got to be the start of that. So I feel very proud of the work that the staff has done on this, and I think the presentation was excellent. Lisa.
I would just say that I appreciate all the comments and agree with them. As someone who really appreciates your analysis and hearing it as opposed to reading it was also super helpful. We're reading it and then I can read it several times, which it takes me. So just think about the letter, people get their mail, they're reading it as they're approaching their recycling bin. I would just make it super clear, and also I would give an example just to make it abundantly clear. If we had done our normal procedure, your bill would be, and I know you can't give every individual an amount, but just to make it very concrete in like just one sentence, what this means for your bill, which is lower because of our action. But still higher because of PG&E.
Yeah, I'll just say, appreciate the work on this. I certainly support the no fee increase. And I agree with everyone that this does strike me as a pretty solid marketing opportunity. It's just such a clear point of differentiation from PG&E and how PG&E goes about business. And the fact that we can be flat like that is remarkable. And I think, I would support the spend on a mailing, communicating that.
We have video happening tomorrow. We have a press release ready to go. We're planning to make hay as much as we can.
Great.
I think that there are two very different marketing efforts, and the one and the most important is to our customers, which we talked about. But there's also a very important marketing effort to the CCA community, because everybody in the CCA community is experiencing what we're experiencing in terms of if they go along with the PG&E rate increase and you maintain or even increase the discount like we saw in this presentation. If we were to double the discount to 10%, it wouldn't have as much impact as us freezing the rates. And I think staff needs to think through how to best leverage that, because that's, we don't want to come off as more important. So we want to be sensitive to that, but I think this is an important point, and we're taking a strong position. This is a big position for us.
I think the first time, right?
Yeah, first time. It's
Yeah.
awesome. I think it's great. Donna.
Just to make a quick point, I think we're in a really good position to do this because we have our reserves built up. And because we are funding our current programs and we have money to do that. I guess what I'm saying is the hard work that's gone on for the past few years is gonna let us do this. And being conservative financially, being thoughtful, so this is really like a program. This is just another program, so instead of putting 43 million into electric vehicle charging and this and that, we're essentially keeping rates down. So I think it's important to think about it a little bit like that, because there's always opportunity costs, right? So if we kept the rate a little higher, we'd have more money coming in, which would be fine. We would not be putting it in Sean's CEO bonus, because that's not what we do. We would, or in C-suite, or whatever, we would be reinvesting it in our programs. So this is money that won't go into programs, but the program is keeping the rates stable, because we're hearing from our clients that stable, low rates are actually right now the most important thing to them.
The other thing to emphasize is just that it is clean energy. People are getting clean energy with this because there's still so much misinformation out there.
Rick?
Oh, sorry, right.
That's right. So I share everyone's enthusiasm. My other question is will there be a point in time where we'll want to play catch up? And if so, how? Like, what's the plan around that?
Nick, you wanna go?
Well, in July, we were talking about coming back to the committee with a recommendation on what to do with rates, because at that point, PG&E is probably going to be decreasing their rates.
Yeah.
And so we need to decide. So that is, I don't know if they'll call it the catch up, but that's our next bite at the apple. And at that point, we'll have more information on our forecast.
But the other thing I think important to remember, and Rick and I were chatting about, this is one of the many unintended good consequences of the surplus funds committee effort. In that and it came back to the board last month, that we set not a policy, but a target of 250 days cash on hand as a high watermark metric for us, over which we could consider reallocation of funds or higher discounts. So that's why you saw in that earlier slide, it was actually super helpful benchmark for us to say, for Nick to do is run his math and say, okay, here's what we can actually afford and still reach that 250 days. So it turns out to be a helpful, and I don't think, we'll see what happens in June, but we're in very good shape right now.
I would also just say that, as Sean referenced earlier, we're going to be talking about rate making several times before June, because we're thinking about if we want to shift and how we would shift our rate making. So there'll be multiple opportunities to address how we're approaching it before we even set the rates, right?
And this proposal is through June 30th.
The only reason why I brought it up at all, because I share everyone's enthusiasm, I think we're on the right path. The only reason why I brought it up at all is because those alternatives in the future may affect narrative now.
Yeah.
So just sort of layering onto what Supervisor Mueller is saying. So I think in our correspondence where we're sort of celebrating the ability to keep this together, it's between now and July. It's not a permanent thing. So I think you have to be really careful when you set the expectations, that if you stand out there and say, yeah, this is what we're gonna do, and then it comes in July and we have to adjust back to maybe the 5% discount or some other discount. So I think articulating that this is a sort of, grace period that we're going to reinvest. We've got plenty of cash on hand, we're fiscally sound. We've heard you loud and clear. So for the next 6 months, we're gonna reinvest our excess cash back into lowering rates. There will be, and then we will reassess. So making it clear that so people, once you give them something, we know. When you take it away.
Yeah, well, let's not forget that in that same discussion, on the 250 days, we implemented or amended the policy for 180-day minimum. That said, if we should fall below that this board would consider raising rates, which is, so it definitely cuts both ways. And I think right now, this is something to celebrate because we did listen and you are taking that action, it looks like. But it does cut both ways.
Well, to take that action, we need it.
That's right.
So moved.
Thank you, Tiger Jess. Yeah, comments or?
The other message I think is worth considering and amplifying is that, to Betsy's point, our energy is cleaner and cheaper, and that's not a coincidence. If you want to drive rates down, clean electricity is the way to do it. If you want to drive transmission costs down, distributed electricity is the way to do that. So we have a message with regulators, with the public, with anyone who cares to listen, both about what we're doing now. It's not a coincidence that we are undercutting PG&E on price. And it's also, it's a trend that I think will continue to only get stronger in the future. That clean electricity being the cheapest available.
Any other comments?
And I will second the motion.
I think Colleen might have it.
Yeah, I got a set. Colleen had seconds it. Tiger Jazz made the motion. Can we do a roll call, please?
San Mateo County?
Yes.
San Mateo County?
Yes.
Appleton?
Yeah.
Belmont?
Yes.
Brisbane? Game?
Yes.
Colma? Daly City?
Yeah.
East Palo Alto?
Yes.
Foster City?
Yes.
Half Moon Bay?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me, Hillsborough?
Yes.
Los Banos?
Yes.
Menlo Park?
Yes.
Millbrae?
Aye.
You, Pacifica?
Yeah.
Portola Valley?
Yes.
Redwood City?
Yes.
San Bruno?
Yes.
San Carlos?
Yes.
San Mateo?
Yes.
South San Francisco?
Yeah.
Woodside?
Yes.
Thank you, passes.
Okay, great. I think that's the longest item on the agenda. The next, pardon?
We hope.
Yeah, we hope. The next item on the agenda is a resolution delegating authority to the CEO to execute an energy storage tolling agreement for Wallace Energy Storage Project. And this is a little bit unusual because normally when we get these agreements that come before us, we have the completed agreement. We don't have a completed agreement today. There's still some minor points that are being negotiated on it. We have done this before, but it's a little bit unusual. All the major points in terms of term, price, party, is known, and that is what we would be approving. But the item before us is to authorize the CEO to sign that agreement. And the reason we're doing it today rather than until next month, there's some timing issues with the deal that is really important to get it done.
Thank you. There's a compliance deadline of February 14th, which is before the next one. Okay, Roy is with us virtually. He's going to kick off, and I think Sarah Macca is also here to support the presentation. Roy?
Yes, thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good evening, members of the board. Roy Hsu, Director of Power Resources. I'll be co-presenting this item with my colleague Sarah Mata, Power Resource Manager, who's in the room tonight. So the item before you, as Rick has introduced very well, is the energy storage tolling agreement for the Wallace Energy Storage Project. And I'll get into the timing issue a little bit later in the presentation. And the recommendation is to approve a resolution delegating authority to the CEO to execute this agreement. And we'll come back to this recommendation at the end of the presentation. So we can talk about the background when we issued the solicitation for projects and some project overview, how this project fits into our portfolio and how this project will help us with meeting our midterm reliability procurement mandate. So some background, as some of the board members may know, we have a portfolio that's filled with solar resources, and solar resources now are creating excess energy on the grid during the middle of the day. But what we really need is evening peak hours for the energy to be produced. So we need more additional storage capacity to optimize our portfolio and to serve our customers load more economically. And for that reason, we released an RFP or RFO in late 2022, and we received a robust response from 28 respondents, offered 58 projects, and staff evaluated these projects based on project viability, development status, counterparty credibility, workforce plan, and environmental impacts. and we've shortlisted the Wallace Energy Storage Project based on its desirable attributes, which I'll get into a little bit, and its overall value for PCE. So the negotiation on this contract started in early 2023. Yes, it's almost a year. It does take a very long time to negotiate these contracts. But all major terms have been agreed upon by both parties, with some finishing touches to go. The project, if approved, will be the fourth standalone storage resources to be added into our portfolio. And the sixth one, if we consider solar plus storage contracts that we've entered into. And the original plan was to seek approval at the February board meeting, February 22nd, after the contract is completely finalized. But we are facing a deadline of February 14th for the project to submit an executed contract to the California ISO in order to receive higher priority in ISO's deliverability allocation process. In a nutshell, this allocation process will provide the project with resource adequacy, which is a very valuable attribute to the project. So helping the project to obtain this priority is going to be beneficial for us as well as the off-taker. And that's why we are taking this new approach here, which is one, we seek authorization to execute a contract in today's board meeting. Then we'll finalize the contract in the coming weeks, consistent with the terms approved by the board tonight. And we'll delegate the authority to CEO to sign the contract prior to February 14th. And then in the February 2024 board package will include an informational report to the board, updating on the status of execution, and include a redacted contract for review. So a little bit more about the project. Wallace Energy Storage is located in Long Beach, and the project owner is this very long name, and essentially it's owned by Prologis Energy, which is a subsidiary of Prologis Inc., which I'll introduce in a later slide. We typically require that the project create a special purpose entity to own for the sole purpose of owning this asset for risk considerations. That's why they have this very long name LLC here. So the project will be 55 megawatts, 4-hour duration storage, total of 220 megawatt hour. Term 20 years, delivery start date June 1st, 2026, which is a very important day for us in order for us to meet the MTR requirements, which Sarah will get into later. This project is located in a DAC, so we'll be helping to bring a clean development into a historically disadvantaged community and creating jobs along the way. So the energy storage tolling agreement structure is one that we pay a fixed $1 per kilowatt month rate with no escalation for the 20 years. And Peninsula will be the scheduling coordinator on this project, meaning we'll have full control over this resource on how to operate it. And this project will create or provide us with many different attributes and storage capacity, which is charging and discharging, on what we usually call arbitrage between non-peak to peak. We'll provide resource adequacy value, as we talked about, ancillary service in the market, and help us to meet midterm reliability compliance. So who is Prologis? Prologis is a publicly traded real estate investment trust and the world's largest owner and operator of logistics real estate. They own many of the Amazon warehouses, and they have a credit rating of A from S&P, market capital of $110 billion. They have developed 530 megawatts of renewable and storage across 19 countries, and has a pipeline of 7,500 megawatts of large-scale storage and 250 megawatt rooftop solar in the US. So they're a pretty big company, and they are getting into the utility scaled renewable and storage development business. And a few more desirable attributes from this project, and Prologis has agreed that the construction of the project will be conducted using a project labor agreement. And the site is located on an existing parking lot in urban area, so it has no significant impacts related to traffic, noise, air, or water quality, and it's expected to be CEQA exempt. So all in all, this is a very good project for us at a very good price and providing lots of value to Peninsula. At this point, I'll turn over to Sarah to talk about fit within our portfolio and how it helps to meet MTR requirement.
Thanks, Roy. Good evening, members of the board. Just maybe if I can advance the slide. Yeah. Okay, I got it. All right. So how is the Wallace Energy Project going to operate? These graphs show an average daily operation for each month of the year in 2027. The y-axis shows whether the battery is discharging, providing energy to the grid if it's above the zero line, or charging from the grid if it's below the zero line. You can see basically every day of the month, we're expecting to be charging during the middle of the day and then discharging in the evening peak. So we're shifting that excess solar energy into the evening peak and overnight hours when we need it. Adding this project to our portfolio, so these graphs show our total portfolio in the gray and orange bars, and our expected demand is the black line for each of the 4 seasons of the year. X-axis is megawatt hours of energy in each hour of the day. So the Wallace project here in orange, you can see it's taking energy out of the middle of the day where we have excess energy and dispatching that energy in the evening peak when we need more energy to serve our customers' demand. You can see we've made great progress in building up our portfolio. In the spring and summer, we're almost entirely serving all of our customers' demand with clean energy and storage. And we still have more to go in the fall and winter. So this project is helping shift the energy around, but it's not providing any new energy, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about our procurement mandates from the CPUC. One of our most important compliance obligations is to procure specific new capacity in these various categories. So it's a complicated order. We're supposed to procure capacity from each of these different types of projects on each of these timelines. Highlighted in the red box here is our procurement requirement that the Wallace project will help to meet. So we have to procure 35 megawatts net qualifying capacity, which is an RA term, of new generic capacity in 2026. And the Wallace project will contribute about 42 megawatts. So we'll have even a little bit of buffer in case there's other project delays. We have some wiggle room to work with. So it's a very important project to provide this, this compliance requirement for us. And I think all we have left is the recommendation, which we can leave up for the board to consider. And Roy and I are happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions from anybody on board? Yep.
We have a lot of parking lots in San Mateo County. Why do we need to initiate a project in Southern California in order to do it more close to us?
Roy, do you want to?
Sure, I can try to answer that question. We're not a developer as PCE, so we have to rely on projects that's submitted to our RFP. If there is a project that's developing in our service territory on a brownfield, we'd be happy to consider that project and probably will value that project higher over a project elsewhere. But we have not received any proposals that's developing on a parking lot here in our service territory.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any more questions. Let me see if there's any public comment on that. I don't see any public comment in the room. Is there public comment online? Okay. And as that public comment is coming up, I'll just say I got a call from Dave Morrow on this contract who asked me to convey to the board how appreciative he is and IBEW is that this is a PLO agreement and that he thinks the agreement and the whole deal is really great and they strongly support it. Oh, Deja.
Ditto.
Sorry, Dave, I took your thunder.
Yes, thank you, Rick. Yeah, I was able to carve out some time to join you guys tonight. I want to thank Chairman DeGolia and esteemed board of members. I'd like to say good evening to you all, and I'd like to take this time to publicly thank Roy and his team for taking some time out of their busy schedule last month to review the power procurement process with our IBW team at Local 617. It was very well done and very informative. I would also like to personally commend Sean for making the meeting possible. And secondly, the entire California state of IBW would like to thank Peninsula Clean Energy for choosing the project that the developer has chosen to commit to a project with a project labor agreement. And the entire IBW thanks you very much for this opportunity. And it goes to show, obviously, what's coming up next, that the IBW is here to support the efforts for a cleaner and environment for everyone. So thank you once again.
Thank you, Dave. And we have one other public comment, is that correct?
Yeah, it's Marty Medina or Carlos Romero.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Chair.
So then we'll close public comment and bring it back for comments from members of the board, and Carlos is up.
Yeah, so I'm looking at these load profiles. So the assumption is that we'll be discharging this this battery facility every day. Is that correct? To meet our needs in times where this stored power is we use the term arbitrage, but it sounds like what we're doing is we are meeting our needs through this facility, as opposed to trying to arbitrage in the market to try to dispatch energy when it is compensated the highest, correct? Rather, it's the former, which is we're using it for our particular power needs.
It's a great question, Carlos, and I think this will be part of the 24/7 strategy discussion that's coming up. But when we model it, maybe Roy should.
Yeah, no, I look forward to that discussion because I think there are ways of dispatching battery power that may in the short run seem to be more cost beneficial, but which is indeed trying to arbitrage within the market. There are, I think, some studies already that are suggesting that perhaps that is not the wisest way to go about it. So that's why I was asking, and when we get to the point where we can talk about the intricacies later on, I'd love to hear how you guys think.
Yes, and I think in CAISO, go ahead, Roy.
Go ahead, Sarah, you go first.
Well, I was gonna say in CAISO, the price signal is often correlated with emissions. So higher priced periods of the day have higher emissions. So it can be an emissions benefit to respond to the high price signals in CAISO specifically. But I'd be interested to see the study that you are referencing.
Yeah, no, I will dig it up and share it. It was eyebrow raising when I read it, I think in December. So thanks.
Roy, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, no, I agree with what Sarah said. I think right now we have to bid this resource into the ISO in a way that will qualify this resource for our resource adequacy benefit. So there's a requirement of bidding the resource and allowing the ISO to dispatch it. But once we get into 24/7 discussion, we might want to operate this battery a little differently to meet our own internal goal. But I agree with what Sarah said. Right now, the market is running these resources for arbitrage mostly, and it is providing value to us. And it might not be completely conflicting, But when we get to 24/7, the way that we operate, we might have to think a little bit differently. So. Not sure if that answered your question, but it's what right now we are evaluating this project based on its value in the market as part of our selection process.
Okay, I mean, that's, if that's the answer, that's fine. There's transparency here and we can go for it. Thanks.
Great. Any other comments, members of the board? Jeff?
Well, I'm very excited to see this project go forward. If you've driven through the Central Valley, you've seen at least one Prologis center. There are those huge warehouses that all of your Amazon goods come from. That number up there, the 7.5 gigawatts of storage they're developing is mind-boggling. I'm really excited to see them go forward, and I'm glad to be part of it. So.
This is an action.
I will move to approve.
Second. Okay, thank you.
Was that second?
Ray, second.
Thank you. Mateo County?
Yes.
San Mateo County?
Yes.
Atherton?
Yeah.
Belmont? Yes. Brisbane?
Yes.
Burlingame?
Yes.
Colma? Daly City?
Yes.
East Palo Alto?
Yes.
Foster City?
Yes.
Half Moon Bay?
Yes.
Hillsborough?
Yes.
Los Banos?
Yes.
Menlo Park?
Yes.
Millbrae?
Yes.
Pacifica?
Yes.
Portola Valley?
Yes.
Redwood City?
Yes.
San Bruno?
Yes.
San Carlos?
Yes.
San Mateo?
Yes.
South San Francisco?
Yes.
Woodside?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, great. Next item on the agenda is another action item on a contract with Macmillan Electric for up to $23 million for construction of solar systems on local government facilities and approve our purchase agreements with the participating nations.
Thank you, Honorable Chair DeGolia and board members. This is Rafael Reyes, Director of Energy Programs. I'm actually presenting on behalf of Peter Levitt, who would have been presenting as our program manager on this program, and he unfortunately is quite under the weather, but he is online and will be available to answer questions. I'm very happy to be here presenting on this. We're very excited to be moving forward with increasing the scale of this program. And what we have here is actually two action items. The first is to approve the contract with Macmillan. And the second is to approve execution of the counterparty associated contracts with all of the participating agencies, the PPAs, and I'll explain this in detail. So I will quickly provide an overview of the program and the background on round two. This is now round two that we're talking about. And of course, Sean in the CEO report made reference to us moving into construction now and operation rather for some of the round one projects, talk about the contracts in some detail and next steps. So again, as a reminder, this is our solar and storage program for local government facilities. Our shorthand for this is GovPV. Some of you may have already heard that. This is one of a portfolio of programs now for local governments, including GovPV for solar and storage, GovEV for fleets, support for electrification of fleets, and the soon to launch GovBE, building electrification, which will make the trio of programs for local governments. In this program, of course, our goals here is listed here, and the objectives are to really help insulate against rising PG&E rates to give certainty and cost savings, help advance sustainability goals, PCE's own goals, and really develop an ongoing program model that we can continue to perpetuate. And as noted earlier, we have around 1 sites that are going into completing construction and going into production. And now we're talking about the round 2 sites, which is a larger cohort. Again, as background, our services here that we're providing for local governments includes all the project development, so design, analysis, procurement, doing this under a group purchase to bring lower costs. We're financing all of these systems through a power purchase agreement, so there's no upfront cost to participating local governments, and we're providing this essentially at cost to local governments, or arguably even below market costs, because we're providing a very low cost of capital that's below market. As a reminder again here, these systems are being deployed by Peninsula Clean Energy. We own and operate the system, so this is our first foray, frankly, into asset ownership on a small scale compared to wholesale. As was noted earlier, that's going to be explored. But we provide PPAs for each of the participating agencies for each of their facilities. And then behind us, if you will, is the contract with the construction partner. Now, this is part of a broader strategy that's still under development. But the first step, which we are really completing here, is establishing the initial business model around this program. The next major step is to incorporate battery systems. There's quite a bit of work there in terms of developing the financial models, the operating models, the risk mitigation, and management and contracts and so forth. And then some of this is perhaps aspirational, to explore whether this could be brought to other segments of the market, explore whether or not we could bundle other electrification measures within PPAs. Those are all things that we will be exploring down the road. As a reminder again, for round one, we have 1.7 megawatts across 12 sites. 2 systems are live, 3 more are imminent, and the whole portfolio should be complete by the spring. We are looking to add batteries to 3 of those systems. Lifetime savings in excess of 15 million. Probably this number is actually out of date, because with the degree to which PG&E rates have gone up, this number is actually higher than what we have listed here. We just haven't done that calculation. Round two, as some of you may recall, has been executed on an accelerated timeline to ensure that facilities can benefit from the net energy metering to improve better compensation rate than what's coming out with the net billing tariff. We have included in the second round some non-member agencies. Considering participation, for example, our Menlo Fire, we have San Mateo Community College District also considering participating. And we have subdivided this into 2 subgroups, the 2A and 2B groups. 2A is solar only sites, where we really wanted to get these in under NEM 2. These derive very immediate economic value from solar only deployments. And then 2B, which will follow, which are solar plus storage. They really only work with the storage added to them. For the 2A sites, we are estimating in excess of $30 million in simple savings across the lifetime, or over $20 million in constant dollars. I'm not going to go through the whole list. A lot of sites, an enormous amount of work, frankly, to get the interconnection applications done with the initial designs and so forth. And we're about to hit the accelerator for moving to the next milestones. But 13 agencies and 33 sites. And then the 2B portfolio, which is 9 sites, much larger systems, plus large batteries. There's still a lot of work to go on these, and you know, the specific numbers here are not final, but just to give you a sense of scale. Let me talk about the contracts. So we executed a competitive procurement process starting in August 2023. We were very pleased, frankly, by the number of applicants. The level of interest was high. So 12 proposals received. This was for, of course, a range of services, including final feasibility, procurement, and the equipment, installation, and so forth. And I'm very pleased here to be able to say that we've selected what we consider to be a phenomenal team. First, Intermountain Electric, who is our EPC for the first round. They're a San Carlos-based firm, they're a union firm. We've been very happy with their work. And they have brought in a partner Macmillan Electric. And I'm pleased here to note that we have Michael McAllister, Vice President of Macmillan Electric here with us. Michael, if you want to stand and provide a brief introduction, that would be good.
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Do I need to do that?
Okay, great.
So, great. Hi, Michael McAllister, Macmillan Electric. We've worked with Intermountain for a number of years, and this project came up and it seemed like a great partnership. We've been around since 1965. We're our union contractor. We have been the entire time. We operate throughout the Bay Area, dominantly in San Mateo County as well. Our CEO, my partner, actually lives in Belmont. So we are part of the community. For us and Intermountain, it seems like really good partnership. We bring a lot of depth and muscle to the project, really. We're a much larger firm, a longer running firm. We have much larger crews, workforce, office staff, everything. So right now, it really seems to be a perfect marriage for the benefit of PC and your customers. So we're really excited to move forward. It's a quick timeline. We have a lot of work to do. The team's been very helpful in helping us achieve that, which is great. And again, to comment on Dave Morrow's, to back up his comments from previous, really happy you guys are pushing PLA agreements. You know, it's not for a business model these days as competition grows, but we as a company still believe it's the right thing to do for the families that work for us. So anyway, thank you. We're excited to move forward.
And I want to thank Michael and his team for their rapid turnaround times under challenging timelines that we've had to work through. But it's been great. The process has been great so far. So to close this out, oops, a little bit of background on the two firms. We basically talked about this already. You know, good pricing, and from day one, all of the participating agencies will see savings. And what we have before you then are the two sets of contracts, the EPC contract, which would be with Macmillan Electric, and Intermountain Electric as a sub to Macmillan, covering, you know, the range of services and expectations, milestones, performance guarantees, and the like. It's highly consistent with the contract that we used in round one. There were some minor refinements and learning that we had in round one, and we've made those refinements within this contract. And then the second item for your approval is approval to have our CEO, Sean, be able to then execute all of the power purchase agreements with the participating agencies. We're knee deep right now in those discussions, as some of you are aware, with staff at your respective agencies to finalize details on these agreements. Again, the power purchase agreement here is based on an industry template that is has been developed to be fair to all parties. That was refined in the round one process in dialogue with a number of agencies here, member agencies. We've made some additional minor refinements and are looking to have a high degree of consistency. In fact, basically the same template with some minor tweaks that if necessary in a local jurisdiction where there are special needs, but essentially the same agreement for everybody. Again, as with the first round, this is 0% escalator, 20-year term, and the costs of the systems are amortized within those payments over that 20-year period. The contract here with Macmillan would be for up to $23 million. The exact figure may reduce, and there are a couple of things that may cause that to happen. One is we may get some drop off in participating agencies. We had some late drop offs in round one. There's also going to be a final design process, and we will be looking to optimize the costs as part of that final design process. As noted earlier, again, this is all intended to be cost neutral for Peninsula Clean Energy. We're basically providing this at cost, and the return of that capital will happen over that 20-year period after the systems go into operation, as shown here in this timeline. And then the near term and a construction timeline actually is here. And so we're looking to execute the construction contract probably in February after some minor refinement, execute all of the power purchase agreements. We are immediately moving to site visits and final designs because of, again, the milestones we need to meet for NEM 2. So we will be starting those site visits in advance of executing all the PPAs. And then moving on in May towards starting the permitting process, then equipment procurement and construction with the intention of having completion of all the systems by the end of next calendar year. Again, a question mark is always PG&E and PG&E's timelines. And so with that, we have the 2 recommendations to approve the EPC contract and authorization to sign the PPAs.
Questions from one on the board?
Yes.
Colleen.
Just under fiscal impact, and maybe this is a finance department question, talking about 30% return investment tax credit. Is that a refundable credit, meaning we receive money, or is it non-refundable, meaning you apply it to payroll? I'm just looking at cash flow.
And I can respond here. So one of the benefits of the Inflation Reduction Act was the establishment of what's known now as elective pay. It used to be direct pay. And elective pay allows us to get direct monetary it's not compensation, but the tax credits come back to us directly as a financial sum to PCE. So the exact details of how that submission process are still something that we have to determine, but the IRS is establishing those rules now.
Yeah, just as a participating agency, San Carlos was very pleased with the process. Our staff said it all worked well. It was clean. Obviously a nice step in our sustainability goals. We've had a long-standing goal of solar in all our buildings and can't beat 0 upfront costs. So we appreciate that and would encourage everyone to participate. There's really no reason not to. Yes.
Last month, we had a visit from Mr. Reyes, among other people, where Half Moon Bay is considering whether or not we want to be part of this program or perhaps own our own infrastructure. And that's going to be coming back to the city council on Tuesday, because we have to make a decision soon, as you undoubtedly know. And we appreciate all the effort that has come to tell us whether or not it makes more economic and political sense to own our own infrastructure or to go with the PPA that is being proposed. Stay tuned.
Yeah, and the general comment here is that if capital is available, owning financially is often a very good deal. If you can get if you can get EPCs to respond and provide reasonable pricing. There is a trade-off there in terms of use of the capital for the solar system as opposed to other uses that the city might have, and that's really the question. So if you choose to invest in solar and want to own your own solar systems, probably the economics are going to be more beneficial. So part of the service here, though, is being able to execute without any upfront capital.
City or if it's contemplating that, would want to be under the NEM 2 tariffs instead of the net billing tariffs, so.
We're well aware of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last thing that I think to add, and fill in any gaps here, but in the second round of the PPAs, which is the second item here, I believe we added a new provision this time that allows our municipal entities to elect to purchase the project, right?
Yeah, there will be, and we are looking at language associated with that, yes.
Yeah. It's after, the expiration of the tax credit and some other things, but we are including that, we're looking to include that provision so we could transfer ownership over to you.
And as I recall, I asked those questions when that was before us. think we did receive assurances that ultimately we would be able to purchase the system.
Any other questions? Let me see if there's any public comment. Peter, okay. I don't see any public comment.
Good evening, folks. May I jump in?
Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Honorable Board of Directors and public. So I wanted to highlight two additional key attributes of this program. The first is that this is a highly innovative structure for procurement of solar and storage across our public agencies and beyond, and that there are numerous other CCAs that are following our lead here and pursuing a similar kind of ownership model. The second is that this program represents, possibly an expansion to Peninsula Clean Energy's organizational model by establishing not just tariff-based relationships with each of our customers, but contract-based, guaranteed revenue streams and ongoing commitments and relationships with them. And that's significant because it allows us to prove, that we are a good faith actor on their behalf, and also that, we have their financial interest and environmental interests at heart. So that is really one of the core impetuses for establishing this kind of program, is getting closer and closer to a direct relationship with our customers.
Thank you, Peter. So let's just take the public comment. There's a comment from Dave Morrill.
Yes, thank you. I apologize for not being able to attend in person tonight, but this is kind of like Christmas for us in the IBEW. This contract, not only is the two contractors selected at the forefront of this new economic scope of work and the climate change, these two are outstanding contractors. And not only that, with the timeline that you guys have chosen, it'll help us in order with this type of work in front of us. We'll be able to take in more apprentices and put them on these jobs so we can have more and more of our you'll have more access to more skilled and trained workforce in San Mateo County. So this is a huge win for us, and hopefully a huge win for Peninsula Clean Energy, and of course for McMillan and Intermountain. And I encourage the board of directors to approve this. It's fantastic. That's all I got to say. I just wish I was there to say it in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Is there any other public comment? Not seeing public comment. I'll close public comment.
Move item for approval.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Okay, thank you. That's I know I have a comment. It's okay. I've got a motion from Julia, a second from Donna. And if anyone wants to comment on this, you're welcome to before we vote. And I've got, it's either Carlos or Marty. I can't tell who's in.
That's all right. Dave answered the question. I know McMillan is a signatory to union contracts. I didn't know whether Intermountain was, but Dave answered the question. So thank you.
Okay, great. Any other comment, Jeff?
This is when we started this 8 years ago now. This is exactly the sort of program and this is what we thought we could bring to the community through CCA. And so just the fact that, it's taken time, and Raphael's built up an amazing team for all of our programs. To be here and to be seeing this, hear comments from Dave Morrow and everyone else about how all the benefits of this, it's amazing to be here actually realizing this potential. So thank you and well done.
And I want to add, I think that, we work very hard to establish an economic base from which we can launch these programs successfully. And it's not just launch programs, it's design programs that will change the market. And like Peter said, I want to really underscore what Peter said. Other CCAs are looking at us and seeing how we're structuring these things. This is innovative, right? This is really changing the game. It's creating a partnership with our cities and our public agencies, and it's really important to do that. And we're doing it, and we're doing it in an innovative way. So we're cutting new ground. I'm very happy with that. Dave?
I was just gonna say, I'm really impressed that all this work will be accomplished by the end of 2025. I mean, that's 2 years, less than 2 years. And that's gonna be an awful lot of local power generation that that we can be proud that we were the catalyst behind.
Right, any other comments? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. We can do a roll call.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont,
Yes.
Brisbane,
Yes. Yeah, sorry.
Hola, Granite City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto,
Yes.
Foster City.
Yeah.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough.
Yes.
Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
Woodside.
Yes.
Thank you, motion passes.
Great. Okay, and the last action item for us for the evening, but not the last agenda item, is approval of the 2024 regulatory legislative policy platform.
Thank you, Chair DeGolia, honorable board members. Mark Hirschman, Director of Government Affairs. Hard to follow Christmas, but perhaps this will be New Year because every January it falls to the board to review and approve the legislative regulatory policy platform. And so you have that in front of you. This is the platform that guides and enables staff to react quickly to matters that occur at the various regulatory bodies, state agencies, and particularly in the legislature. What we did this year that's unique is we performed a full audit of all the other CCAs in California and their policy platforms. And I want to extend appreciation to Jeremy and his regulatory team, and appreciate in particular Jenna Sharp, who undertook the lion's share of this effort. And want to assure you that ours is among the most, if not the most robust policy platform in the state. Also want to express appreciation to the Ad Hoc Legislative Committee. They lead our efforts in Sacramento legislatively. And they took a review of this prior to it being presented to the board. And this time would like to ask if there are any members of that committee who wish to add anything to the presentation. Not hearing any comment. This year we made a number of technical changes as outlined, and you can see in the red line version. We do have 2 new planks for the consideration this evening. You may recall that last July, the board had an extensive discussion of what we then called regionalization. We're now calling regional transmission, and led by the regulatory team. And there was legislation, but that legislation did not succeed, did not move very far. And so shortly after that, there was a letter authored by a number of states, and currently those states, a number of them are still participating in what's being called the West-Wide Governance Pathways Initiative, or Pathways, I think we're referring to it in short. And right now that is including California, Washington, Arizona, Oregon, and New Mexico. What is important to us in this discussion is that CalCCA has a seat at the table and is participating in the ongoing discussions. It's not known at this time what, if anything, will come out of it, but they are talking. And it is our hope that we would be part of the discussion, at least to provide our influence. And so we've devised a plank for our platform that addresses that and hopefully incorporates the thoughts and issues shared by the board at the July meeting. So you have that in front of you. It's also in your packet and reflecting our interest in supply availability, reliability for California's customers, recognizing our influence on the governance of whatever structure comes up, and also something looking for something that would advance California's clean energy policies and goals and progressive initiatives. With approval, that would position us to be able to engage in pathways discussions, and particularly through CalCCA and their position on the board, discussing this and then track those policy efforts for this board. The second new plank that we have in front of you this evening concerns interconnection. This has become a major issue both in San Mateo County and throughout the state, and particularly in certain pockets of the state where new projects, existing institutions, residents are having difficulty getting connected to the grid, whether that's a utility scale project or solar panels on your home. I know we had a situation with the San Mateo County Medical Center about a year ago. We are seeking your approval of a plank to help us support those policies that would expedite interconnections, be they on utility scale developments or distributed energy. With this, it would be the state of intention of Peninsula Clean Energy to support policies that expedite interconnection. If there are any questions, be happy to answer them, and this is an action item.
Questions from members of the board? Yes, thank you. I may have missed this board's conversation earlier about the topic related to hydrogen and the inclusion of a hydrogen for light duty vehicles piece.
Yes.
Could maybe you refresh my memory and or in the public on how that came about, and do we feel that even green hydrogen or renewable hydrogen is not worth pursuing?
It's not a question of pursuing, but at this and there is a bill, AB 1550. Actually, do you know if it went forward this week? I haven't heard if it. Mr. Bennett's bill on hydrogen, and the administration is pushing green hydrogen, but at this time that's not the operative hydrogen in these vehicles, and so we're promoting electric and clean energy, and if that were to change it for us, we would want to change that policy. There has not been a board discussion, but to your point, there has not been a board discussion on hydrogen. We have not brought that to the board.
Interesting. Okay.
Did you have another question to ask?
No, I mean, I guess I'll just convert it into a comment that, like, perhaps I don't know if anyone on the board would be interested in discussing perhaps a small tweak to that, to like non-renewable or something of this nature, so that we, you know, as maybe an alternative to going ahead with all hydrogen and then revisiting it at a later date, given what was just discussed about this upcoming bill and the administration's interest in that. I guess also I realize that like Peninsula Clean Energy may not be necessarily getting into the renewable hydrogen business necessarily, but I guess my ears, you know, started burning when I read it, because I just was not totally sure if this was coming from a judgment of like green hydrogen's overall footprint or impact versus electricity, or if it's, you know, even like if we're considering it as a potential competitor to like the services we're offering. I'm not sure if you.
Yeah, there has not been that discussion. This was a proposed, I don't recall exactly who inserted this as a proposal, but it has not been discussed further at the board.
Maybe one
Sean?
thing to do is to, we can take a look at that. If you want, remove that amendment for now and then come back if you want to have a broader discussion about it. Is that what you would like to see?
Well, I imagine there are people in the room who are more educated on this, and just wanted to throw it out there.
I'm not sure if I have a super strong stance on it. I guess I'm maybe more partial to the idea of just like considering something like non-renewable. Changing, just putting in that word in front of hydrogen, and then I imagine it might be all right, or I don't know how anyone feels.
Can I clarify if you're referring to the use of hydrogen in the gas pipelines or for light duty vehicles? Because I think there are two different implications for that, whether or not you're using green hydrogen. Because the use of hydrogen in gas pipelines is being seen as an effort to sort of greenwash fossil fuel resources. And so this research has shown that you can only actually introduce about 15% hydrogen in gas pipeline before it becomes unstable. So perhaps a friendly suggestion could be investment in hydrogen for light duty vehicles and not so much for a methane gas system.
Yeah, I think my concern was more toward the light duty vehicles, and I think I would agree with your assessment on maybe not worrying about it with regard to pipelines and keeping the language as currently recommended there. But I think maybe just this, I guess also I remember attending a meeting recently in which Samtrans was talking about pursuing hydrogen. And so I guess I just am thinking, like, when we're talking about specifically light duty vehicles, I guess I'm not sure if personally I'm in on opposing anything related to any kind of hydrogen. That's all.
So question of clarification. You've put up two statements, one on interconnection and one on regionalization, which I have no problem us voting on. It's in front of everybody. But if we're supposed to be adopting a plank that includes several pages of other material, maybe including referencing hydrogen, I don't think that's in front of us, even though it was in the staff report. We're not looking, so I don't have any problem approving these, but if there's a lot more detail that we're supposed to be approving, I can't support that. That would need to come back, but I think we could support these two platform positions now.
So just to,
what you guys want.
just to be clear, you're accepting the two new planks and adding that to the existing platform? And that any other changes would come back?
I think what's going on, Mark, is
Yep.
that in an effort to be brief, which I appreciate, it's the explanation on the slides is not clear enough that what we're asking for is adoption of the whole legislative plank, which includes some other red lines, including the hydrogen comment. And so, to your point, it's maybe not a robust enough delineation of what the changes are. And so what I hear you saying is maybe take it, bifurcate it, approve part of it, and then come back for the rest next time.
Well, I think personally, I'm very comfortable to approve the recommended positions on the regional transmission and the interconnection. I thought they were very well stated. They handled some of the nuanced problems with each of them, and I 100% support the language the way that you put it together. But everything else, but we haven't.
Well, through the chair, does it help if we bifurcate it? Or if we just bring it all back?
Whatever they.
Up to you.
Because we're not under some sort of deadline or something, right? So when do we have to approve the?
There is. This is to be brought to the board in January, but the board doesn't have to approve it in January, of course. So we could continue it to next month, or we could adopt the two planks that have been approved and incorporate them into the existing platform. And then any other changes we could either bring back or choose to bring back at another time. But these are the only two planks that I think address issues that we see coming up this year that would be of significance. The other changes were in the ordering of the platform. There was a suggestion that we reorder the platform to put the affirmative positions ahead of others. And in adding these two new planks, we renumbered the platforms. I think other than the hydrogen in your staff report, there were two other changes. One was the mention of hydrogen for light duty vehicles. Another was the rate increases, and we added the words other associated fees to the containment of transmission and distribution rates. And then on the environmental justice and affordability plank, we added other policies that would improve the economics of decarbonization. So we felt those were not significant enough to put on the board for the meeting, but happy to bring those back if there's any concern that in the renumbering and rejiggering.
Jonathan, right?
So, the only reason I think it's probably important to get this going is because the legislature is in session right now. And I think it would be important for Mark to have direction on how we want to pursue over the next 30 days. Given a lot of these bills get formulated and start get voting on soon. So, I would be willing to at least put the 2 planks in, accept the draft changes with, continued discussion at Director Lorraine about the question that you brought up, which these are live documents, and if we wanted to make a subsequent change, we could amend it. But at least we would have it done and ready for the legislative session.
Right.
I would just ask to delete the investment in hydrogen for light duty vehicles. And the reason why is because I do serve on Sam Transport. They did do it. It was like, it was definitely a robust discussion around that, but I'd like to really have a discussion about how this might impact.
And through the chair, if I might, I can comment on the hydrogen for light duty. So this did come from the programs team as a recommendation. I would note that the buses this would not apply to buses. So this is strictly light duty vehicles, meaning personal vehicles that people drive every day for themselves. And the logic here is that hydrogen clearly has the potential to play a very important role. Green hydrogen has the potential to play a very important role in storage and in transportation in certain segments. 10 years ago, the jury was out on light duty vehicles. Now the market is all batteries, even though there are some companies like Toyota, which are latecomers to electrification, still trying to push hydrogen alternatives. Our concern here is that state budgets are a zero-sum game, and there's still hundreds of millions of dollars going into hydrogen for light duty vehicles. And we don't feel that that's a wise investment at this stage, where the market has so decisively moved towards electrification of light duty vehicles. Again, in other segments, the jury is still out, and it may make sense to continue those investments. So that's the underlying logic here.
I'll withdraw my request.
As well, I appreciate the clarification.
So then I'm happy to move the item too.
Rick? This is Carlos Romero speaking.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, so I actually think Rafael did a really good job of explaining the light duty hydrogen issue. Yeah, it's not going to affect whether it's our garbage trucks, which indeed may not be able to get enough power from, or the batteries are going to be so large that, having garbage trucks with, 6-ton batteries doesn't make any sense. And same goes with buses. So I would, but I do think that this, keeping the hydrogen, the opposition to investment in hydrogen for light duty vehicles makes sense. I still think the jury is out as to whether it really makes sense. Green hydrogen is really green. It's really green in the sense that what you're doing is there's a conversion loss factor. So anyway, but it's something we can talk about later. But I'd be fine with leaving that light duty vehicle piece. I support what Rafael said.
San Carlos seconds Supervisor Mueller's motion.
Just motion to approve.
I did.
Second, okay. Any other comments? Okay. I've already done it.
I was just gonna say, I appreciate the clarification, where do you go? But appreciate the clarification on light duty vehicle, because I did not know what that meant. So thank you.
So can we just clarify?
You already do public comment?
Yeah, we did.
Is there any public comment? Public comment in the room. I don't see any public comment online. Okay. Got a motion in a second.
Secretary County?
Clarify that motion.
Motion was just to move the staff recommendation.
The staff recommendation
The whole
being
policy,
those 2
the whole
points.
policy. As amended, the whole policy is amended.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Secretary County? Secretary County?
Yes.
Applicant?
Yes.
Belmont?
Yes.
Brisbane?
Yes.
Burlingame?
Yes.
Colma? Daly City?
Yes.
East Palo Alto?
Yes.
Foster City?
Yes.
Half Moon Bay?
Yeah.
Hillsborough?
Yes.
Los Banos?
Yes.
Menlo Park?
Yes.
Millbrae?
Yes.
Pacifica?
Yes.
Portola Valley?
Yes.
Redwood City?
Yes.
San Bruno?
Yes.
San Carlos?
Yes.
San Mateo?
Yes.
South San Francisco?
Yes.
Woodside?
Yes.
Thank you, the motion passes.
Okay, and the last regular item on the agenda is the Strategic Accounts Initiative update.
Oh.
Justin Klein, our senior accounts manager.
Strategic account manager.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to be here, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for the intro, Sean. I'm here tonight to provide a discussion on some load acquisition initiatives ongoing and upcoming in 2024. So short agenda tonight, customer confidentiality policy background, the opportunity that we have, an update on Caltrain, and then some next steps before we open up for Q&A. And before I proceed to the next slide, I'll tackle the first point on this agenda, which is the customer confidentiality policy. Just a reminder of this policy, we will be talking about large loads tonight. It might be tempting to ask who these large loads are, but in alignment with our policy, we cannot discuss who these customers are or are not. All right, so in the report we provided last month, the account services report, we mentioned that we had some, we were talking with some large commercial loads that were currently served by Direct Access, who we were talking about bringing over to PCE. I'm happy to report that at the beginning of this month, we enrolled those 3 large buildings, commercial buildings, into our service, which represents about 8.5 gigawatt hours of load annually. But to better understand what that means, I think need to have a common understanding of what direct access is. It's not something we talk about often. So direct access is basically a third option available to customers in California, a third retail electric generation service option. It operates similarly to CCA in that an energy service provider provides can provide non-residential customers with electric generation service. PG&E continues to do the poles and wires. The energy service providers, or ESPs, are typically in private companies, and they're not confined to any jurisdictions or fiscal boundaries like we are. But the amount of customer load that can be served in the direct access program in the state is capped at 16% of PG&E's total load. So you can see in this left pie chart, this is a share of all customer load in our service territory and who they're served by in terms of direct access, PG&E bundled, or Peninsula Clean Energy. Apologies, those PCE logos got a little bit moved away, but I think you can match them to the right chunk of pie. So the amount of load served in PCE territory by direct access providers is only 12%. So it's actually above the cap, or like the normal percentage that you would expect across PG&E territory. So PCE actually has a lower percentage of customers enrolled in direct access than you would probably see in other service territories. Another thing on direct access, customers in direct access typically represent, or are typically large customers. So they represent like an outsized share of our largest customers. So this right-hand pie chart is a share of the largest 150 accounts in PCE service territory and the load served by each of these 3 categories. So in this case, direct access actually serves almost 30%
of the largest 150 service agreements by load. A quick point of clarity on this. Most of these customers have been enrolled in direct access well before Peninsula Clean Energy formed. So we have not lost 30% of these customers to direct access. They have been in this program often way back to the early 2000s. Another thing to consider, so as we think about our mission to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in San Mateo County, in the city of Los Banos, the ESPs, the energy service providers that are serving these large loads, they, in most cases, are, and this is per a CPUC staff report that's in the memo, in most cases, these ESPs are only procuring enough renewable energy to meet their RPS requirement, their renewable portfolio standard requirement, and otherwise contract in the market, which means at the time of this report, CAISO, market power was, in terms of emissions, was equivalent to a gas-fired generator. So it's, aligned with our mission to try and serve these customers when possible. All right. So that said, we're not always going to be the best service option for these direct access customers. There is a long-standing legacy of direct access service providers providing a deep discount to PG&E bundled rates. But recently, as I mentioned, we had some customers come over this month, and we've actually been having other conversations with some of these direct access customers interested in learning about PCE service. In short, as they go to renew these contracts, they are seeing much higher prices than they were anticipating, than they were paying previously in their contracts. And this is for a couple of reasons. One, these ESPs are in the same markets that we are as PCE and PG&E, so we've seen generation costs increasing, and they're also seeing generation costs increasing to provide to these customers. ESPs also have the same resource adequacy obligations that we do, so they're seeing the same RA obligations. And on that note in particular, resource adequacy is often a pass-through cost in these ESP contracts. So a customer might get a fixed rate on these contracts for energy, but some things like resource adequacy or even renewable products are pass-through. So customers have already been seeing these higher costs come through on their bills.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I understand direct access, and I understand that there's plenty of legacy customers there, and that they came in at the low dollar. That's their whole deal. It's a low cost issue, and I'm sure RA has pushed them up, and I think some of them have come over to us because of that. What jumps out at me are the 5 PG&E bundled customers in those 148 customers, because with this rate change this year, that ought to give us an opportunity to go after those customers.
Yeah, great question. So I'm glad you allowed me. I wasn't going to address it, but I'm glad you asked it. So this time last year, there was 6 on that row. We took 1 customer over last year through direct engagement. We're currently talking to another one of those customers. We have an open line of communication with them, a unique situation where I think it's likely this year, but just not right away. The other 4 customers in that bucket are what I'm about to talk about is a kind of like a not so great candidate coming over to PCE service. So a lot of direct access customers and those 4 PG&E bundled customers in this scenario are large national corporations. So their footprint extends beyond PCE's footprint. They're big box stores, telecommunications, food franchises. So that's on the direct access side, and also for those 5 customers where they have corporate policies to remain with their either direct access or PG&E service. Their decision-making isn't happening locally, and it's hard to get traction when they're looking at, the benefit of a generation provider across hundreds, if not thousands of locations. But definitely want that number to go to 4 this year. So I'm gonna just to keep going on that same train of thought. So in addition to these kind of corporate policies, there are other things that will make it hard for us to pursue some of these customers this year. They might be in the middle of a contract. That we talked about the local decision-making and the corporate policies. And the other thing is that, some of these customers have been being served by direct access for 20 years. So it'll take a lot to get them over. We have to have a really competitive service to bring them over. The good candidates then are customers, obviously, with upcoming contract renewal. They have local decision-making, a local footprint. They share a mission with Peninsula Clean Energy, right? They have corporate renewable energy goals that align with ours. And they see the benefit of that, and they have an interest in benefiting from PCE programs. So these are the customers that we are going to try to, engage with and are engaging with this year. I do want to set the stage for, I don't expect at the end of this year that all 39 of those direct access customers are going to be our customer, because they are pretty sticky customers with their DA provider. But given, the rates conversation we had tonight, given what's happening in the market, I do think we're in a good position to begin talking to these customers and start to lose some of them over. All right, and then the last update, I should mention at the beginning of this meeting, I said we have a confidentiality policy, and when we can't talk about customers, everything I'm sharing on Caltrain has been shared through their own public board meetings, and I'm bringing it here to you guys. So this is nothing that the customer has shared with us in confidentiality. So Caltrain is on track to begin offering electric passenger service in September of this year. We have been working with Caltrain's team of consultants back since April. Leslie Brown, Director of Account Services, and I have been meeting with them on a fairly regular basis. At first, just talking about the benefits of PCE, providing cost comparisons and expectations on rates. We've also been working with them on receiving their load analysis, which then Power Resources gets to bring into our own load forecasting. And we've also more recently been working with them on identifying what potential revenues they might have through the Low Carbon Fuel Standard program, which is a program that allows fuel transportation to receive credits for moving to a lower emissions fuel source. So just in terms of what's next with them, we're going to continue meeting with them. Ultimately, what we're trying to ensure is that PCE is the energy service provider of choice as they think about their options between PG&E and PCE. They're not in, they're not going to be eligible for direct access. So helping them move through that process. Definitely want to help them maximize their potential revenue from the LCFS program, and ultimately just provide, a partnership and a platform for future collaboration. And with that, I'll take any more questions.
Question? Betsy?
Is there an opportunity for marketing to promote the large companies that are using our clean energy, and therefore somehow giving an extra benefit, and also just customers? Many would appreciate that. And also with Caltrain, is there any possible hook there, or maybe even with the legislation that, it's great that we're moving to electricity, but if it's not clean electricity, it sort of defeats a lot of the purpose. So either with marketing or with legislation, is there any opportunity?
We're certainly happy to do that if they want us to, right? And it's a disclosure issue. We have in the past, and I imagine we definitely will with Caltrain.
Okay, let me see if there's any public comment on this. Is any public comment in the room? So no public comment online. I'll close public comment. That is the end of the meeting. If there's any board member report, you can do that.
One thing I wanted to bring up, I mentioned to Sean earlier. We did heat pump water heater and also HVAC. And came to find out, getting the winter bills as a PCE customer, that the baselines that PG&E puts on your bill reflect your gas-powered major appliances. And unless you tell them that you've actually switched to all electric, they leave them at the gas. And actually, when you put in the electric water heater and also the HVAC, they give you a greater baseline because you're using more electricity, but you have to ask. And that's something I think we need to somehow get this out to all the customers and within your cities. Convey that to your residents, because it's a big difference.
And contractors.
Yes.
Contractors should
Yeah.
know that.
Yes, our contractor never said anything. Maybe he doesn't know.
Oh, he doesn't.
Thank you, everybody.
See you next month.